Enfield Henry Fanshawe School. It's Miss Yates here, and it's your SLT assembly this morning. I'm going to be presenting with Mr. McGuinness and Mr. Cooper, and we're going to be focusing on this Term 5 SMSC theme of democracy, society and the rule of law, and particularly focusing on this idea of British values. British values really help us as schools to make sure that we have good plans in place to ensure that we celebrate our individual differences and the diversity within our community. And I think this is something we do really well generally as a school. We're very good at understanding that our unique differences and the diversity within our community is what makes this school such a great place to come to learn or to come to work. And we want to talk to you a little bit more about that this morning, starting with a quick recap of the British values. So can you name the 5 British values that schools across the UK support, and quickly recap what is meant by the term British values? I'll give you a second to pause the video now if you need to. Okay, hopefully that was enough time for a quick recap. And hopefully you got that one of the British values is acceptance and celebration. There's also the rule of law, democracy, individual liberty and mutual respect. And the British values are formed from a government initiative that aims to teach students the values of these concepts. At DHFS, we make sure we support British values through many different ways, actually, through the mentor programme, through assemblies, but also through things like student voice and the fact that we really promote freedom of opinion and celebration of diversity within our school. This morning, we're going to focus on 3 British values in particular: acceptance and celebration, the rule of law and mutual respect. And I'm going to start off by talking a little bit about the rule of law. Did you know that it's against the law to discriminate against anyone because of the categories named in the bullet points that you can see on the board there? So age, gender reassignment, being married or in a civil partnership, and you can see the list goes on, including things like pregnancy, disability, race, religion, and sexual orientation or sex. These are all things that are called protected characteristics, and you're legally protected from discrimination if you fall into any of these categories. Okay, this is protection from the Equality Act of 2010. You're protected from discrimination at work and in education, which I've highlighted in pink, because that's the one that's probably relevant to everyone listening here in education, although some of you will work too, some of our older students. But in later life, you're also protected when it comes to things like renting or buying a property or using public services. You're also protected from discrimination if you're associated with someone who has a protected characteristic. So, for example, a family member or friend, or if you've complained about discrimination or supported someone else's claim. You also hear sometimes talk about this particular concept of action against discrimination. That means that you can do something voluntarily to help people with a protected characteristic, and it's what's known as positive action. Taking positive action is legal if people with a protected characteristic are at a disadvantage, have particular needs, or are underrepresented in an activity or type of work. And I'm going to hand over to Mr. McGuinness now to talk to you a little bit more about types of discrimination.
Thank you, Miss Yates. Right, students, I'm now going to speak to you about the different forms of discrimination that exist in the world. So firstly, we've got direct discrimination, treating someone with a protected characteristic less favourably than others. We've then also got indirect discrimination, putting rules or arrangements in place that apply to everyone, but that put someone with a protected characteristic at an unfair disadvantage. We then have harassment, which is unwanted behaviour linked to a protected characteristic that violates someone's dignity or creates an offensive environment for them. And then finally, we have victimisation, treating someone unfairly because they complained about discrimination or harassment. Now, it goes without saying, all forms of discrimination on that slide in front of you aren't tolerated, aren't accepted in our school, and nor should they be. If you're a victim of, or if you hear, or if you see any of those forms of discrimination, you need to make sure that you report it to someone. Report it at home, report it in school, if necessary, report it to the police. But rest assured, students, that discrimination won't be tolerated or accepted when you come to this school. So at our school, we try to make sure that we have a culture, an atmosphere, a feeling of acceptance and celebration of diversity. You all come from such different backgrounds, and that should be celebrated. And that's what a school should be. School should be a melting pot of differences. And it should be that you come to our school feeling comfortable in your own skin, regardless of disability, regardless of race, gender, sexuality, etc., etc. Now, in order to protect the people that come to the school, and I include staff within that and parents, we have a series of policies that you signed up for to say that you would follow those policies. I'm going to make specific reference to our anti-bullying and our behaviour and discipline policies, which are both available on our website. Make sure you familiarise yourself with them, because if things go wrong, if people don't follow the policies, and if people do discriminate against people, people will be sanctioned against. It will lead to detentions. It will lead to isolation and exclusions. In some cases, it would lead to involvement from other agencies, such as the police. Don't be that person. Don't be that person that comes to school to discriminate against another young person. So some of the things that we try to make sure we have in our school to promote and to enhance that accepting and celebrating culture. We have a curriculum that aims to reflect the diversity of modern Britain and the world. That's within your taught curriculum, going from lesson to lesson, but also in your SMSC sessions and the wider curriculum. It's a curriculum that hopefully puts you in a good position when you leave school, so that you can be an upstanding member of society in whatever society you are dropped into. We're intolerant of prejudicial behaviours. We have the policies in place, and we have groups, weeks, months sometimes, to make sure that we celebrate all things that are different within our culture. I'm now going to pass on to Mr. Cooper, who's going to be finishing the assembly.
Thanks, Mr. McGuinness. And from those core values of the rule of law and acceptance and celebration, let's move on to a third massive value that's really important throughout society generally, within this school specifically, and in our individual lives, and that's mutual respect. Mutual respect, something that gets banded around quite a lot, but how often do we actually just reflect on that term and what it means? And in respect of the key essence of it, that due regard for the feelings, wishes and rights of others. And you've got to give respect to get respect. And I challenge you now to think, to reflect, just how much of a respect person are you? Everyone says they want respect, everyone says they give respect, but reflect, how much do you actually do that? How much do you respect yourself? How much do you respect others, staff, the environment you're in, whether it's the school environment or the wider environment? It's about having due regard for the feelings, the emotions, the wishes, the rights of others, and to actually enjoy what's in society generally without causing offence or upset or hurt or anguish or anxiety. That's what mutual respect is all about, is doing it together. And within school, there are a number of massive examples of where respect is evident, and you should be demonstrating this on a daily basis. There's also some examples that you can see on the screen where you shouldn't be doing certain things that leads to a lack of respect. And I ask you the question, why would you want to do the things on the right, knowing that they cause offence, knowing that they upset people, knowing that they can cause anxiety, stress, worry, hurt feelings, make people emotional and down and sad? Why would you want to do that? Why wouldn't you want to follow the examples of respectful behaviour on the left-hand side of the screen? Because we're on one chance we've got on this planet, and the world meets nobody halfway. Why aren't we trying to be the best people we possibly could be? And what possible joy out of it is there of causing upset and hurt through a lack of respect in the way you speak to people, or treat the environment which we all share and work together? Mutual respect is massively important for us to achieve that agenda. And it's really important, linked to other things that have been said by Miss Yates and Mr. McGuinness, that we have respect for everything, but particularly that we are not demonstrating discriminatory and prejudicial behaviour. I'm going to make it crystal clear as head teacher, this will not be tolerated. There have been incidences where we've had to deal with homophobic behaviour, with sexist, misogynistic behaviour. not acceptable, absolutely bang out of order, and it's led up to exclusions and will lead up to potentially permanent exclusions from school. This school is about respect, having due regard for people's feelings, emotions, rights and wishes. You need to get on board and be supportive of that. And if you're concerned about it, follow one of those examples that you can see on the screen in which to report it. They are dealt with seriously and effectively to make sure that we won't tolerate discrimination or prejudice, and that we can all live in an environment of mutual respect.